why is this vital? Why does actualizing our sovereignty allow us to walk our soul path in this crazy modern world? And it's a funny one, sovereignty, in that in some ways it is almost like rewarding in and of itself. It is something that allows us to choose the other two primordial strands. I mean, they're very much all woven together anyway, as we've said. And sometimes the work, as you just gave the example of Vision Quest, the work of reclaiming our wildness also is so intrinsically linked with actualizing our sovereignty and requires sovereignty to even choose it. But it's so interesting, sovereignty, in that in some ways it is literally just a tool. It just allows us to do things. And yet, we were talking about this when we were preparing for this recording the other day. On the other hand, it is quite sexy. Like when when you think of someone who is sovereign, there is like it is one of the most appealing, alluring, sexy things that someone can be. And so I find that just an interesting thing about sovereignty, that in some ways it is literally just a tool that allows us to live life fully. And yet there is something just, so magnetic about a sovereign person, which of course is a rare person in this modern world. Um, Anything else you want to add to why this is
Just to
essential? I
say,
didn't really even talk about why it's essential, but it just occurred to me to say
well,
that.
just to tack on to the end of that, which is thank God, because the seductiveness of the shadow to not take the aligned actions to step into sovereignty is so strong
Yeah.
that, that having it be sexy, as you described it, is a really helpful motivating factor, as well as
Yeah.
all of the many others.
But anyway, I didn't actually ask. Saying that it's sexy is not answering the question of why it's vital. But the first, and I guess almost like the main reason, it's I don't know if any of these can be considered the main reason, but one of the key reasons it's vital is, as we've kept talking about, this crazy modern world is darn challenging to live in, let alone to walk our soul path in. And it is completely understandable that we will consider ourselves a victim to it. We will consider ourselves at the mercy of it. We will consider ourselves to have no power, no agency in the face of the challenges of this crazy modern world. Sovereignty is what changes that. Sovereignty is what allows us to recognize that we can not only meet the challenges of this modern world, actually see them as the way that we do become our true self. We can meet the challenges of this crazy modern world in a way that we are allowing it to forge us, to allow us to become ourselves. And it is sovereignty that creates that shift, is a real shift of perspective, where I'm no longer a victim of this crazy modern world. I am sovereign and choosing these challenges in a way that allows me to become my true self. I mean, that on its own is just like, I mean, if that was the only reason that it was worth actualizing your sovereignty, I think that on its own is everything. But I'd love to hear you add your thoughts.
It really is. As you know, we are right where we are based on the sum total of the choices we have made in our life. And for so many of us, for so much of our life, we make those choices from a victim stance, without that level of sovereign awareness. And we speak often to the sovereign price versus the victim price. And just having that awareness that you've been paying a victim price. And it doesn't always make it that much easier to sometimes make the choice. Boy, are you glad that you're aware that the choice is there in the first place.
Mm.
And to have that clarity of no longer will I choose to pay the victim price. I will pay the sovereign price. And the sovereign price, although sometimes quite hefty in what it will require, is always worth it. And with the sovereign price, with actualizing your sovereignty, comes this beautiful. It's hard to really describe it as a thing, but the energy, which is grace. And grace is is the most incredible companion, is the most incredible quality to have when we're coming up against the crunchiness of this modern world, when we're coming up against the raw harshness of our life at times. And without grace, without sovereignty, we we will inevitably lose ourselves. We will inevitably never be able to find ourselves. And so, it's all about choice. And when we have that sovereign, it's like that compass, that elevation. It really brings it all home to us.